Hello Algebra 1! Today we are going to talk about something called the quadratic formula. And this is a formula that can be used to solve any quadratic equation that is in standard form. But why is quadratic formula necessary when we are able to complete the square? Alright, so let's try this problem. We are going to try completing the square with this guy right here. We'll start by subtracting our 5 over like normal. Okay, and then we take our b value and we are dividing it by 2, which is a negative 3.5, and then we're going to square that, which is not really a number that we just happen to know in our head when we square 12.25. Okay, so we're going to add 12.25 to both sides. This is going to make it very difficult to give an exact answer because we have these decimals that we're going to deal with while we're trying to simplify square roots. And because of this, completing the square is not really the best option. Okay, so it's not the best option because we have these decimals that we're dealing with. So why is that we're getting these decimals? Well, it has to do with our b value. And you may have noticed it's specifically a 7. So quadratic formula works easily for any quadratic, even if the b value is odd. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is practice finding something called the discriminant. The discriminant is b squared minus 4ac, and this is what we're going to see underneath our square root in this quadratic formula. All right, so all we're doing is we're substituting these values into the little expression here. So b squared, we're going to put our 8 in parentheses, minus 4, my a value is negative 2, and my c value is negative 8. And then I'm just going to type this into my calculator, or you could do it in your head. And so right now we're just kind of breaking down the different parts of quadratic formula before we put it all together. All right, so we get a 0, and we'll talk more about what that means in a little bit. All right, let's try it one more time. B squared, again, make sure you have parentheses, minus 4, my a value is 3, and my c value is 6. Where did that line come from? That was really weird. Okay. All right, and I'm going to type that in. And I get negative 23. All right, and again, we'll talk about what that means in a little bit. All right, so now we're going to practice typing these values into our calculator and evaluating them. Now, if you're using Desmos, it's going to be a little bit different, and your teacher might show another way to type this into your calculator, but this is the way that I prefer to do this. Your calculator does not have a plus or minus button, so we are going to type this in twice. We're going to start with the top, 5 plus square root 175, enter, and then take that value and we'll divide by whatever is in the denominator, which in this case is 2. And we will round to the nearest hundredth. So our first option is 9.11. Okay, or now we're going to do this again, only we're going to use the 5 minus. Okay, so this is something you're kind of familiar with from completing the square. Make sure you divide by 2. All right, so negative 4.11. All right, let's try this one more time. So negative 2 plus square root of 144, enter, then divide by your denominator, which is 4. Okay, so 2.5. Or, now we're going to do this again. Notice I'm using the minus this time, and divide by 4. All right, so now we're going to put this all together. We're going to go back to the first problem that we tried to solve using completing the square, and we're going to put our skills together to solve using quadratic formula. When we do quadratic formula, we are always going to round to the nearest hundredth. All right, so here's your formula right here. The first thing we're going to want to do is identify our a, b, and c value. So our a value is always that number in front of x squared. Our b value we're familiar with from completing the square. That's your negative 7, and your c value is 5. All right, and now here's your formula right here. We have negative b, or what I like to say is opposite b. Okay, so that's why that negative's there, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, if you notice, we have negative 7. That's really just going to make this a positive 7. And some people prefer to just put that right away. Now I'm going to calculate this part right here, which is the discriminant. And I'm going to do that just like I did on the previous page. I'm going to use parentheses. Negative 7 squared minus 4 times 1 times 5. And that gives me a 29. So now I'm just going to rewrite this all simplified. 7 plus or minus square root of 29 all over 2 times 1 is 2. All right, and finally, the last thing I have to do is type this into my calculator twice, just like I did up here. All right, so 7 plus square root 29, enter. Don't forget to divide by the 2. So I have a 6.19 for my first answer. And then I'm going to type it all in again, this time with a minus. And divide by 2. And that's going to round to a 0.81. Okay, and these are your two solutions. And you would get the same thing if you did completing the square, but this is going to be a lot easier to deal with. Okay. All right, let's try it again. First step, identify your A, B, and C. So A is 1, B is 4, C is negative 5. Now notice that your B value isn't even here. So this one would be fine for completing the square. We're just still going to practice this using our new method. All right, so your formula is up at the top. We have x equals opposite B. So it's a negative 4 plus or minus square root B squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2 times A. So once you get all of that plugged in, then you want to evaluate your discriminant, which is just this part underneath the square root. 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 5. And that gives us a 36. So now we're going to rewrite this. We're going to simplify it. We have a square root of 36. 2 times 1 is 2. And then the last thing we'll do is actually type this into our calculator twice. Negative 4 plus square root 36, enter. Divide by 2. So the first answer is 1. All right, and then we do it again. Negative 4 minus square root of 36, enter. And dividing by 2. And our second answer is negative 5. All right, and so that is what x is. Let's try 2 more examples. Number 5, we have to make sure that we're in standard form first. So we want A and then B and then C. Your negative 1 here is your going to become your C value, so we need to add that over. So we do need to be in standard form here, kind of like we were when we were factoring. Okay, we want everything over on one side, and it does need to be in the correct order. This time your A value is 4, your B value is negative 6, and your C value is 1. So I have x equals opposite B, x equals opposite B, but B is a negative 6, so this becomes a positive 6, plus or minus B squared, I was kind of jumping to my B squared there a second ago, minus 4, my A value is also 4, my C value is 1. All over 2 times my A value is 4. All right, so once you plug everything in, again, you want to find your discriminant next. So that's just this part right here. Use your calculator. Make sure you have parentheses around that negative 6 squared. And this gives us a 20. So that is our discriminant. All over 2 times 4 is 8. All right, and then we're going to actually have to type this in. 6 plus square root 20, enter. Don't forget to divide by 8. Or, now we do it again, 6 minus square root 20, enter. Don't forget to divide by the 8, 0.19. And those are your answers. Now, if you're someone that's not using your graphing calculator, instead are using Desmos, there is a pretty easy way to go about and type this into Desmos. First of all, you're going to want to be on your graphing calculator. And if you go ahead and press the division button automatically, this gives you a fraction. So what's nice about this is you can actually kind of type everything in at once. 6 plus, here's your square root button, 20. And then just move the down arrow to get 8. And notice again, it just kind of evaluates that for you right away. One of the nice things about this, okay, there's that 1.31 we had, is that all you have to do is go back and click and change it to a minus. You don't have to type everything back in like you do with the calculator, and then that will give you your second answer. So this is an option if you want to use Desmos. You might find it faster. All right, one more problem, number 6. First thing we always have to do, whether you're using your calculator or Desmos, is get our equation into standard form. So we'll start by subtracting this 5x over. Notice this is going to be your b value. It has your x with it. So when you rewrite this, you have your 9x squared minus 5x plus 1 equals 0. Your a value is 9. Your b value is negative 5. And your c value is 1. All right, so we have x equals opposite b. So that's going to take your negative 5, change it to a positive, plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, so now let's go ahead and evaluate our discriminant. Again, make sure you have parentheses. And that gives us a negative 11. All over 2 times 9 is 18. But wait, can we take the square root of a negative 11? We cannot. If you try to type it into your calculator, you're going to get an error. And so what you've probably guessed is for this type of problem, we're going to call this no solution. Okay, this one cannot be solved. And we'll talk about what this means graphically, finally, in one of our next sections. All right, so I hope you have a great day. Bye.